Yoga Vasishtha Sara, Chapter 1, Part number 4. Let me first start with a small introduction. All these verses we are covering from this work relate to one and the same question, which is, who am I? For example, am I this body? Or am I that which is aware of this body? For example, am I this hand? Or am I that which is aware of this hand? Or, take another example, am I my thoughts? Or am I that space of awareness in which thoughts come and go? For example, if I think about a flower, a red rose, am I this red rose? Or am I that which is always there, aware of the appearance and the disappearance of this red rose? So these are the questions that we are asking ourselves when going through these verses. They all refer to that same central point. And this awareness is often referred to as consciousness. The whole problem we face in life arises with the fact that we take ourselves to be this body-mind, instead of taking ourselves for that which is aware of this body-mind. And when we do that, something gets split. Body-mind is here, within the limits of this skin, of this body, and the outside world gets created there. That is the origin of dualism. And what makes the situation even worse is that we then believe that happiness somehow has to lie in objects that can be found out there in the world. So if you're looking for happiness outside, in objects or in relationship, that is when you get into problems. We live our lives like in dualism. Paradise is lost. And we are a little bit like those children on the beach. They are surrounding themselves with their toys, usually plastic toys, little windmills, little other gadgets, which are moving in the wind and glistering in the sun. And the child thinks, oh, this is beautiful, happiness lies out there. And when someone takes the toys away, they start to cry. They believe happiness is being removed from them. And this happens until the moment that we learn to turn our attention around to that awareness, to that consciousness which we are, and that we understand that every moment of happiness in our life actually emanates from awareness, from consciousness, from what we truly are. Enough for the introduction. Let's go back to the Yoga Vasishtha Sara. We already covered chapter 1, verses 1 to 15 in previous episodes. And let me now read verse number 16. That perverted man, who even after knowing that worldly objects are deceptive, still thinks of them is a donkey, not a man. Don't feel insulted. He's treating us all like donkeys, but don't worry about that. What is being suggested here is that the children will seeing that their toys are glistering in the sun, that they are not the ones making them happy, but that happiness is actually emanating from within. Even after they're being told that, they still continue to believe that happiness is out there. Same with us as adults. Even when we understand that after buying a car, our happiness only lasts a few hours, and that this happiness is actually emanating from within and not from the car, even if we did that 10 times, 100 times in various different objects, we still will continue to believe that happiness comes from those things. That's why the verse compares us a little bit like being a donkey who doesn't learn. Or to take another example, when you believe a vacation is triggering happiness, you go to the sea, you go to the mountains, and you think you need that to be happy. Well, believe it or not, the happiness is actually coming from within. And if we don't see this, we will suffer when those things are not provided to us. Or take another example, a friendship or a love affair. How many friendships and love affairs do we need to have before we finally understand that ultimately they will always be disappointing in a certain way? Friendship A, friendship B, lover C, lover D, one after the other, we are disappointed. And yet we will continue to believe that those happiness comes from there, and we forgot that when we do have friendships feelings here or loving feelings here, it's actually emanating from consciousness. And we are like donkeys. We continuously believe that happiness lies in the other. Indeed, one has to conclude that it takes time to reverse our focus from the belief in happiness out there to the understanding that the happiness or the bliss is right here and now. It takes time. For some it takes a little time, for others it takes years. But does it really matter? It's fine to be a donkey. It's okay. Everyone needs a certain time to learn this process. However, there comes a time that things no longer have the same attraction. We will still be playing the game, such is the nature of our body-mind, yet we will no longer get sucked in the same way. As we recognize the happiness and the inner light shining brighter and brighter, we no longer will depend on those outside objects, friendships, etc. What do I mean by the statement, we will still be playing the game? Well, if, for example, you have a visitor and this visitor brings you some flower, it would not be necessary for you to say, oh, I don't want these flowers because they don't bring me happiness. I know happiness is here. Go away with your flowers. There is no need to do that. Or someone else brings you a bottle of wine There's no need to say, I know that happiness is not in this wine. It's inappropriate to do so. You play the game knowingly that the happiness is not there, but you can play the game without offending the friends that are bringing you some gift, like flowers or a bottle of wine. You just say, thank you very much. That's all. Ponder about these things for a moment before we go on with verse number 17. Even the slightest thought immerses a man in sorrow. When devoid of all thoughts, he enjoys imperishable bliss. Look at every thought that comes up. Each thought is in fact a bit like a little train that takes you away from the here and now. It takes you away. It's a bit like being kidnapped by the dream. And while being kidnapped that way, you forget that what you are is the space of awareness, is consciousness. You forget your ground nature. You forget your center of gravity. And you believe to be the hero of the dream movie that you're having. Typically, thoughts can be of several categories. They can be regrets of something that happened in the past and which is no longer there. They can be a wish of something that we hope will happen in the future. But most of all, they are this commentator in your head, this judge. With whatever is happening in the here and now, you have this little subtitle, this commentator saying, oh, this is good, oh, this is bad, oh, I want that, oh, I hate that. And this judge is clogging the transparent mirror that you are. So rather than being this crystal clear mirror in which life is happening at every moment, we somehow obscure it by the constant judging voice, the so-called good and bad voice. To be in the now is where all the happiness is to be found, and that is what creates this bliss. But we obscure it with all the noise. I'd like to read a little poem by Mumon. Mumon is a Zen master, and his poem goes like this. The spring flowers, the autumn moon, summer breezes, and winter snow. If useless thoughts do not clutter your mind, every day is a good day. So what this poem conveys is, if you can live your life without this constant judging, commenting, but just being this crystal clear mirror, this consciousness which you are, every day is a good day. Let's read again verse 17. Even the slightest thought immerses a man in sorrow. When devoid of all thoughts, he enjoys imperishable bliss. Ponder about this for a moment before we proceed with verse 18. Just as we experience the delusion of hundreds of years in a dream lasting just 1 hour, so also we experience the game of Maya in our waking state. Dreams are more or less the same like thoughts. They can be compared with those blooming flowers originating from a flower pot. Or I often use the example of saying there are like little balloons. Balloons originating from the still point. And the still point is what you are. The balloons, the flowers, they have time and space. They last a certain time and they take a certain volume. But the still point is always here and now. And some balloons can last for days, like, for example, a night dream. For example, you may be dreaming tonight that you're a prince in an ancient kingdom in India, and you're in a procession full of elephants, and not far from you is a princess on another elephant smiling at you, and you fall in love, and you decide to get married. Big festival will be organized, and you build a beautiful castle together. You have children, grandchildren, years go by. And suddenly the alarm bell rings and it's only been 20 minutes. This is what is meant, that a dream may take a certain volume and yet it's only a certain time. Each time a thought ends or get interrupted, you return into this here and now, this still point from which all time balloons emanate and disappear. Ponder about this while I'm reading 18 one more time. Just as we experience the delusion of hundreds of years in a dream lasting an hour, so also we experience the game of Maya in our waking state. So in other words, this waking state is not different from the dream balloon we have created in India, as in my example. This concludes today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to see you once again soon. Have a wonderful day.